Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. Some hockey tournaments all over. You know that it's getting close when the rookie tournaments are here. I always used to, go to the Leafs rookie tournament in London, Ontario. That was always an event. Now they've been playing in Traverse City the last few years. There's one going on in Buffalo that I'm going to go check out some games. Russ, there's one in the New York area, correct?
Well, no, Lehigh Valley.
Lehigh Valley. Okay.
The Rangers are playing the Flyers the next 2 days in Lehigh. I'll be there today. So.
Okay. So, but we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
Yep. So it's two things. I'll do the loss of a childhood hero first. John Stearns passed away today at the age of 71. He was a New York Mets catcher. He did make it to Old Timers Day, and that's amazing that he made it. Mets hadn't had an Old Timers Day in probably a decade or more, and he made it there, and he did coach first, I think, for an inning. But he did just pass away. The interesting thing is the Mets got him in a trade with the Phillies for Tug McGraw.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in those years, if the Mets made a trade and they traded someone like Tug McGraw, they usually got very little in return. This time they got a catcher who was a military guy, a football player. So he loved the collisions at the plate, but he also stole 25 bases one year, which was the National League record, and it still could be. It's almost impossible to figure out who the NL record is for steals in a season, but he had it at 25. Just a really great guy. I met him too. Really good.
By a catcher, you mean? It could be like a Roger Breshnahan or somebody.
No, it's by a catcher in the NL.
No, I'm saying Roger.
No, but he had the record in 78.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if anybody has broken it since.
I don't think Benito Santiago or Tony Pena did. So yeah, he might. I'll check that out.
He might still have it. I saw Wathan as the American League guy. That was.
It's weird. I have an attachment to that. Now, they sucked. They were terrible. But that late 70s Mets team, and the reason why is because they were on WR out of New York. Mm-hmm. So I saw, I listened to Ralph. It was Ralph Kiner on the broadcast. And it was like, John Stearns and Willie Montañez and Doug Flynn. Mm-hmm. And Joe Torre was the manager. And
yep.
I'm pretty sure Ellis Valentine was on
later. That. I don't know if he was on that team. It was either that year or a year later. In that
range. So, I mean, it was a Lenny Randall.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just a collection of this is before Strawberry. This is before the Hernandez trade. This is before Gary Carter and Gooden and Darling and all those guys. So, this was the team that sort of they sucked for about 5 or 6 years. And then they started, once Torrey left and he went to Atlanta and they hired Davey Johnson, that's when they started to turn it around. So,
yeah. And then the other thing is, and maybe Eck will perk up for this one, Roger Federer retired. Absolutely. And he's definitely in the discussion for all-time greats.
Yes.
I really watched him intently probably the last decade, but especially the past few years because I knew with his knee surgeries and stuff, he wasn't going to be around much longer. The funny thing about Federer is he's sort of like this really quiet guy, a lot like Henrik Lundqvist. They probably go out together. They both look great into their 40s. It's kind of maddening in a way. But getting back to his play, he didn't really get to have a retirement tour like Serena did, at least for the U.S. Open. Federer really didn't get that, and maybe he didn't want it. Maybe that's his way.
Yeah, I mean. The funny thing is, I don't know whether because right now it's Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer. They had those three guys battling against each other. I don't know if any one of them could be considered the greatest of all time because that's it. Like if you look at the late 70s, which I think is the golden era of tennis, late 70s, early 80s, it was not just Borg. It was Borg. It was McEnroe. It was Vince Gerulaitis. It was Jimmy Connors. It was Lendl. Then Boris Becker in the early. I mean, there was like 10 guys who were capable and did win majors. And now it's like, there's some young kid who just won the U.S. Open. I don't even know who the hell he is. But for the last 12, 15 years, it's been those three guys.
Yeah, Federer won 20 Grand Slams, though.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to top, isn't it?
Yeah, 103 titles, Mike. Like, that's
no, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's fantastic, but
now Jokovic might pass him. That's the crazy part.
I think he benefited from the fact that really there were only 3 great players. Like, I mean, even I made the same argument when it was Agassi and Sampras. I mean, who else was there out there other than those 2 for a while? Let me just say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. I mean, and we used to get, and you wonder what those guys would be like if they had like, graphite rackets and stuff like that. Some of the old guys, like, they were like how fast some of their serves would be, like they were back then be using like wooden rackets or like, the early graphite rackets. But now like everything's just picked up so much. I mean, there was nothing better than like an epic tennis match between like, some of those guys back then. They were just incredible.
Well, there was an excellent documentary on McEnroe on Showtime a few weeks ago. And, he was always my favorite, and obviously because of his, sort of over the top sort of thing. But, like his career was shortened by, like his personal situations, drugs, his marriage to Tatum O'Neal, all that stuff. But for 4 or 5 years, he was just like the most dominant player in tennis. But I just don't think that tennis it's like boxing. Tennis is still a sport, still a big sport, but it's not the sport that it was, I'd say 25 years ago.
There's fewer greats, but there's a lot of really good players. I think there's always these cycles. And I think right now they're in a little bit of a down cycle. They don't have as many megastars, but there are some players that are starting to gain notoriety. I think it's as much about notoriety as anything else. I mean, look, even Andy Roddick, who wasn't an exciting personality, was a hell of a tennis player, right? But so I think you have to look at it that way too sometimes.
No, for sure.
One last thing here, I did watch the first Amazon Prime game between Kansas City and the Chargers, and it was a good game. I have to say, they made the right move getting Al Michaels, because Al Michaels is gold. He's just one of the best.
Yeah, and he's automatic.
And Kirk Herbstreit was good. He was now very knowledgeable.
Okay. I watched a little of it. He was okay.
So the broadcast was fine. I just don't know, and maybe they paid $11 billion for an 11-year deal. And the thing is they want to drive traffic to Amazon Prime. I just don't know whether they're going to be able to drive enough traffic for one game a week on Thursday nights.
I don't think they're looking for that. Honestly, I think they could say whatever they want to say. Thursday nights have typically been lousy games. You might get 2 or 3 of like what you got last night, and the rest are sort of lousy. I think they just want to say we have the NFL and these other things. That's why you should sign up for Amazon. I think that's really all it's about.
I think the Amazon Prime has so many aspects to it. Like that
1,000 things in it. Like it's like
the shipping, all the television, all the
right. Like, heck, if you said one thing, right?
Yeah.
If we had to narrow it down to one thing, this is why I get Amazon Prime. We're probably all going to say the shipping.
Yeah.
But if you had to do a top 5, it would take you a half hour.
Yeah, it's an incredible deal. I mean, Amazon Prime is an incredible deal. I mean, really, honestly, for what you get, and it's smart of them to have like have a good Thursday night game like at the beginning of the year to get kind of things going. But yeah, all right, let's get going. Here we go. Hockey World. It is Friday, September 16th, 2022.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. And today we're going to talk about a couple things. We're going to get into the Chicago Blackhawks preview, which is like kind of like a trade deadline preview in some ways. But we'll get to that too. There's going through that, I was like, geez, that guy, that guy's a trade deadline guy. That guy's a trade deadline guy. So we'll go through that. They might have 5 or 6 guys they're going to try to, who knows how many first round draft picks they'll end up with. Or probably not many, but quite a few seconds. And we'll also get into I want to get into another signing yesterday. I think it might be like one of the sneaky best signings of the year. But first, I do want to talk for a second, and Mike, I don't mean to do this to you, but I was watching this NHL Network today, and I know we watched this game. I'm not going to talk about the game. I don't want to talk about the game at all. Okay. But what I want to talk about, so the NHL Network, which, thank God for it sometimes, today is playing game 7 of what we've jokingly said is Mike's least favorite game of all time. The Wayne Gretzky high stick game, the whole, the LA Kings.
It was game 6 and not game 7.
Game seven. Sorry.
Oh, okay. It wasn't the Great Western Forum screw job.
That was game 7 of that series. Okay. So, And for us, it was exciting. It was a fun game to watch. But the one thing that really did strike me is just how much it was just like the Battle of Alberta had expanded into those two teams. Like, it was unbelievable the amount of Calgary Flames and the amount of Edmonton Oilers on both of those teams at that time. Mm-hmm. It was incredible. Like, because that, in the late 80s, you had this incredible Battle of Alberta, and then they really just all shifted to those two teams. Like, on obviously you have Gretzky, you have Curry.
Well, the Leafs, not the Leafs, but the Kings collected them all.
Yeah, Curry was not on the 93 team. Gretzky
okay, whatever game I was watching was 93 then, Mike. It wasn't 93 that I was watching. I was watching.
No, Curry was not on 90. It was Gretzky and McSorley.
What was that? What game was this then? It was game 7. Did they play another series?
They never played another game 7 other than that. And Curry was not.
He was definitely in this game. What the heck?
And Curry became a Ranger a couple years later.
I think Curry was on that team. There was. It was Sandstrom was in there, right? So you got Sandstrom, you've got Curry, you've got Huddy, right? Huddy's on the Kings at that time.
Oh, okay. I'm mistaken. I didn't think Curry.
Yeah, no, Curry definitely there. McSorley,
I thought Curry might be because
Curry McSorley is a line. That's a whole Edmonton Oilers line right there.
Yep.
Right. You got, and then in the
Sandstrom, Granato, and
Granato, and
the two main ones were Gretzky and McSorley. Were the two ex Oilers, and on the Leafs they only had Krushelnyski and Glenn Anderson. Those are the only two former Oilers.
Glenn Anderson's a pretty big one,
That's a big one.
And then, but also from Calgary, you had like Jamie McCowan, right? Who's a Calgary.
Right, well, was part of the Gilmore deal. Yeah,
Gilmore, right. You have Gilmore, right? Who's a Calgary Flame.
Yeah. And Andrew Shuck from the Sabre deal. Wendell Clark.
Right. It was just really funny to watch, like, how many of those players when I'm watching this game. And I remember now it flashes back to that time when I thought, the Kings were such a weird hodgepodge of things. Like, that was, you still had Robitaille and you had Rob Blake. You're 3 years past Tom Laidlaw's career.
You had a young Alexei Zhitnik. You had a young Daryl Sador.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had, you had just, you had weird players and to see those guys, like, in that game, it was just really striking to me how many of those players were in that game. It was really fun to watch. And Gretzky
was a good Kings game. There's no doubt.
Gretzky had an amazing game, obviously, and but Anderson had a great game.
Don't remind me.
Gilmore had a great game. Wendell Clark had a great game. Like, watching all these different players, it was fun to watch Wendell Clark again. Like, I always liked him a lot. And he scores a big goal in that game. And like there was a time in this period of time in the second period where Toronto just dominated them. It was just fun to watch. Back and forth, and
that makes one of us.
I know it didn't end the right way for Toronto fans, of course, but it was interesting. Like, that game really was like the extension of the late '80s Battle of Alberta, just extended into the current time. All right, so yesterday, the Ottawa Senators signed Tyler Mott, and we've talked about Ottawa being a team to look out for. This is a really sneaky good signing, like under $2 million, 1 year deal.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll say what I said to Russ. I agree. It's a very good signing. They got him at a good value, $1.35 million. But for Ottawa, it would have been more beneficial to them to get the equivalent of Mott as a fourth line forward on defense, because all they've done is improved a little bit up front, and their defense is really where I think that they're going to fall short in, they may make trades before the deadline and improve the defense. But right now, I still think, their goaltending is average. And their defense after Shabbat, who's a legitimate number one, and Sanderson, who's really a great young player, but we don't know how great he's going to be right away. You look at the rest of the defense. Hamonic has tailed off. He was dumped last year. He's got a year left in his contract. Ottawa took him on. Artem Zub is a good depth defenseman. I'd say at best he's a 4. Nikita Zaitsev is not as good as he was even 3 years ago. I think he's a bottom pairing guy. Russ, you talked about Bernard Docker as potential.
Yeah, I think he'll have a shot at making the team. I don't know if he'll make it. Look, I get what you're saying about their defense, but you can't get a defenseman that cheap. I think what they did here that's good is they have a lot of high-end talent, and you need some of this greasiness to put with them to sort of teach them things, and I think that's where Mott comes in.
Yeah, he's a good fourth line guy. He's an energy guy. He's not gonna, he's not gonna shortchange a team. So in that respect, I think it's a good move. But I like I said, I think that if they were going to add somebody, I don't know if there was an equivalent of Mott on the blue line that's still out there. Somebody in the chat saying PK Subban. But and Subban, as somebody said there, he's weighing his options, and he may, it's not exactly a bulletin. Subban was not going to be willing to take a PTO. He wants to go someplace where he has a guaranteed 1-year deal. And
I don't know if anybody's given him that.
I know, right? And since he made $45 million on his last contract, that $9 million a year deal, he can afford to be picky and choosy. So maybe he goes to Florida or Vegas or wherever.
I guess he's going to go where the injuries are. But if nothing else, this should show him. Boy, I really have to show these teams something because nobody wants them.
I have a weird feeling. Vegas makes a lot of sense for him because he'd be cheap, and right now they've got a holdout situation with Nicholas Hague. So maybe that takes a little.
That's it. I gotta tell you,
I know.
I am not bringing in Subban in hopes that Nicholas Hague comes running back, because if he doesn't, that is a massive downgrade.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat said Bruce Garriock said that Ottawa looked at Subban earlier in the offseason and decided not to pursue him. Yeah, I mean, he's not the guy that he was.
No, if you watch his film, his foot speed isn't there. He can still get some scoring in for sure. His defensive coverage isn't great.
Right.
There is some toughness there for sure. But, I mean, are you bringing him in for 8 minutes, 9 minutes a game? Like, that's what, he doesn't want that. He wants to be like 12 to 15 minutes, and I don't know who really needs that.
I think some team will give him that, Ross.
I heard, and I
give that to Keith Yandel.
I haven't written this yet, but I'm because I was doing some more checking on it. But the one team I had heard that actually had interest in him, I had heard Toronto had interest in bringing him on a PTO, and I did hear looking at that. But I did hear the Islanders had interest in bringing him in the PTO.
Oh my god!
And I think the Islanders would make some sense. I think that would be that, and I could see that happening the way they do things. He definitely adds a lot of he's a sandpaper type character. He's a very dirty player. He obviously the Rangers hate him. The Islanders would loving the Islanders having him would definitely be a wonderful fun thing for all of us, to watch as that series just would get more and more intense, because there's so many interesting things that happened with the Rangers and Subban over the years as when Subban was a Devil. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. I wouldn't mind seeing the Islanders with him. I think that would make some sense.
Well, I mean,
I don't think the Islanders would want him either, because I think it's a problem if you have a new coach and you bring in a personality like that. That's an issue. But there is one Islander thing we should talk about, Ek. Matt Barzal came out and spoke to somebody from NHL.com and said he's ready to sign long-term with the Islanders now. And I've got to tell you, that is a brilliant move, because Islander fans can no longer get on him like they did with Tavares, saying, well, you never really wanted to sign, whatever. He's like, sign me up. Now, I will tell you, if he has the year of his career this year, they're going to wish they signed him, because then they're going to be in a similar spot where all of a sudden the price just went up a lot. Yeah. So what would you do if you were Lou? That's the question.
What would you do if you were Lou?
I would sign him personally.
I think you should too. I mean, I think that, and I think you're getting him at a good time. I mean, it's like, he had an off year.
Right.
And he's not, I don't think he's a player that's downward trending. I think he just had
a year. He's not downward trending.
He's a very seriously talented player.
Now, what they have to worry about is, okay, so he's coming off an entry-level deal and a bridge deal. I believe the bridge deal was 3 years, so he's 1 year away from unrestricted free agency. So this is the time to say, okay, I want the max deal. He's 24, 25 years old, something like that. Okay. If they don't want to give him that, they want to go shorter term, he's gone. He's going to say, screw this, I'm going someplace else. This is the time that you have to sort of pony up and pay the piper here, because he's your.
I just don't understand what the hesitation might be.
Right. I mean, the only thing is it coming from ownership that they don't want to invest in an 8-year?
No, I think it's got to be coming from.
Everybody's signing 8-year deals.
It's got to be coming from Lou. Lou doesn't like to be pressured. Obviously, he's not going to like the fact that he said that he's ready to term long.
No, but you have to admit it's a good move by Barzal to do it.
Just say it. It's a very good move.
Yes.
But it's not something that he'll necessarily like. He doesn't like to be pressured, and I think that yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out because he's probably going to say, well, let's see how you do this year.
First. Well, let's go back to his Devil days. Remember, it was ownership that pressured him into that Kovalchuk deal. He didn't want to do it. It was ownership that said, do it. And then he took the heat because it was a cap circumventing deal. And then they had to, redo the deal. But
change the rules.
Right, exactly.
They ended up changing the rules of the NHL about that because of that deal.
Right, but the whole thing was he didn't want to sign Kovalchuk to that deal. He didn't want to sign Scott Niedermayer to a big deal, so he let Scott Niedermayer go to Anaheim. He didn't want to sign.
That's not true with Niedermayer. That's not the way.
No, it is true. Niedermayer went back to him and he says, "I know that you want to play with your brother. You got my blessing," and he went.
And Niedermayer told him that's what he was going to do, and Lou said you should do that. It wasn't about him not wanting to sign him there. He wanted to sign him, but he wasn't going to stop him from going.
Lou didn't.
No, but that's a passive-aggressive thing. It's like this is Scott Niedermayer. Like Scott Niedermayer meant everything.
I know, and that's why. That's what Lamoriello does. That's
by the way, Scott Niedermayer may be one of the nicest guys on earth. So I can't imagine he gave a hard time to Lou about this contract. I think it was probably just a situation where he was like, look, if you're not going to sign me, I'll go play with my brother. And it's like Lou's like, okay, go ahead. And he did.
From what I heard, it was not like that at all. Like it was very much, him coming in and saying, I would like to play with my brother. And Lou saying, I don't blame you. And, but it wasn't like that Lou didn't want to sign him at all. That's not the way I heard it going down.
But there has to be a point where you say, do you want to stay here with the team or not? I'll pay you to stay here. Everybody in the world has a price, Zach.
No, I think that was what he kind of did. I think he did say we want to keep you, of course, but
did he give him that price? That's the question.
I don't think you insult a guy like that. If he comes in and tells you that he wants to play with his brother, he wants to go to Anaheim. He wanted to go there. That he was set and ready to do that.
He wanted to stay, but he wanted to get paid.
He didn't want to stay. He didn't want to stay like that.
I think he would. Let's say it this way. Maybe it needs rephrasing. I think he would have stayed. I think if the Devils would have offered him more than what Anaheim offered, then I think he would have stayed.
I don't know. I don't think so. And I think Kevin would agree. I'm going to talk to Kevin about this a lot too.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about it again. I mean, it's just, that, but again, forgetting that situation and talking about the toxic Tavares situation, Barzal took a step here to try and make sure that this didn't turn on him.
Yes. And that is a good thing. And that I agree with you. And that's a smart move because what's happened, like you said in the past, because of the Tavares situation, this is all smart. This is all very, very well played by him.
It's tactical.
Yeah. And I think that he is one of the guys that Lou definitely likes. So it could just get done. But Lou's not going to want it to sound like it got done because Barzal threatened or anything like that.
But here's the question I have for you. And I think this is a fair question. It seems like Lou will sign the Kyle Palmieri contract so much quicker than he'll sign the long-term Matt Barzal contract, even though this guy represents so much to the organization, and the other guy's just a guy that he knows from the past that's coming in.
I mean, it's funny. Okay, look at what Lou has done with the Islanders. Sorokin, 2-year deal, or it was either 2 or 3 years at $4 million. Didn't sign him long-term off the 1-year deal when he played really well, probably because they didn't have the cap space. So he went bridge. Now he's got a year left in his contract, and after posting a .925 save percentage, you're probably going to end up paying him probably $6.5 to $7 million on a long-term deal if they want to sign him to a long-term deal. Dobson, bridge deal, but who did they go long-term with? They went long-term with Pulak and with Pelech, but they went long-term with those guys because they weren't paying them top dollar.
Right, they're sure
He doesn't have a problem signing guys who are sort of middle of the pack, middle of the road to long-term deals, but he nickels and dimes on the stars. And I don't think that's good team building. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, what players has he nickel and dimed with in the stars before?
Well, okay. Go back to Austin Matthews.
Yes. Okay. I'll use two examples with the Leafs.
I don't think he had anything to do with that last Matthews thing, though. I mean, honestly, that Austin Matthews deal was like,
it's well known. Austin Matthews gets drafted first overall. They're negotiating the entry level contract, and Lou did not want to give him the Schedule A and Schedule B bonuses. And reportedly, Brendan Shanahan at that point went to Lou, get this done, because he's the franchise player.
Then, but this went on for a period of time. Like, it
wasn't
like
the bonus thing has always been that's been another thing about Lou doesn't do bonuses,
So yeah, and Mitch Marner didn't get any bonuses, and after his 3-year deal, he whopped the Leafs for, hit them over the head and said, okay, well, you didn't give me any bonuses, so now I want to be paid as much as Matthews. So in the end, that hurt the Leafs, and Lou was there. Nylander had played 2 years, had 2 decent seasons. He was eligible to have an extension, and Lou said, okay, we'll wait for the 3rd year. We'll wait until he's an RFA and then negotiate with him. And if they had negotiated at that point, he would have probably signed either a bridge deal or signed for much less than $7 million. So as much credit as Lou gets for signing Kadri and Morgan Riley to long-term deals for very good value, he screwed Toronto with what he did with Matthews, Nylander, and Marner.
Okay, so you think that if he gave Marner the bonuses, that Marner gets less money on this long-term deal?
No, I think it's really
not a chance.
No. It was really a factor in the negotiations between Darren Ferris and the Leafs going forward, because they took a hard line on his ELC, and they said, we're not going to bow to them again. And that's what happened. They ended up getting almost $11 million.
They can sit there and say that, but the hard line on the ELC, that makes it, that's maybe works.
No, but I guess the pattern here, Eck, is hard time with Marner, hard time with Matthews. This is not an easy time with Barzal right now, because he's basically saying, pay me, and they haven't done it.
Yeah, well,
there is a pattern here.
No, they're different situations, though. You're talking about ELC contracts.
They are different, but it's still a pattern of younger players. Like someone here in the chat room said, Lou likes to pay for it's Northern 96. Lou seems to prefer paying for past production versus potential, even though the trend is now paying for potential instead of production. That's where I brought up Palmieri. I don't know if Lou was the one who brought him in. Esme may be right. It may have been the previous regime, but he knows him from the USA program. That's what I was getting at. And the point is, he would rather do that and what he thinks is a known than delve into the unknown and pay for that. Like, I think that's true.
Lou does pay for character. Like he pays more for character than probably anybody else. Like,
well, how about paying for talent? That would be nice.
Pays for talent too, but not like. But I just don't see how the ELCs made. Like, I cannot see Marner taking $1 million less per year or Matthews taking $1 million less per year just because they didn't get what they wanted in their ELC. I don't see that. I think the ELs at the end of the day, there's the second deal for Marner and Matthews were going to be what they were going to be. There really wasn't that much. They really ended up where everybody thought they would.
I think it set up a sort of an adversarial relationship between the Leafs and Marner with Ferris, because they didn't remember he didn't sign that extension until like the day opening of training camp. They didn't know whether there was going to be a holdout or not, because like there was the previous year with Nylander, and he ended up getting almost $11 million, and nobody thought that he was going to get that kind of money.
Yeah, I will say this, Mike. I doubt that there's any lingering feelings. It's a different regime now. I don't think that would carry over. I don't think
not with Toronto now. No, I think
that's what I'm saying. I don't think
I'm talking about 2019. I'm talking about when those contracts were negotiated.
No, I know, but then I thought you were kind of saying, no.
I mean, I think that Matthews and Judd Moldaver, who is his agent, I don't think there's any animosity there. In fact, I think there's a definitely, good line of communications between him and Dubas, and that's why somebody on Sean Simpson from TSN had sort of trolled, that Matthews is going to go to Los Angeles in a couple years, and I'm like, what happened with Tavares in Toronto or in New York is, because remember, the last year of his deal, he had a no move clause. They could have moved him before the no move clause kicked into effect. Yeah. And once the no move clause kicked into effect, he was going to stay with New York for the rest of that year and test free agency. So Matthews has got the same no move clause in the last year of his deal. That's why if there's an extension, and I have no reason to think that there's not going to be, it will be next June before the no move clause. And if they can't reach a deal, then the Leafs would be in a position like Calgary was with Matthew Tkachuk. You can't risk it. I think they'll make him the highest paid Leaf in history, the highest paid player in the NHL, and I think they'll get it done. But if they can't get it done, and he's like, well, I think I'll play out the year. Well, you'll be playing out the year someplace else because I think they'll have to trade him.
Here's what I'll answer to Muskegon, and we'll see what X says. But he says they can't just pay everyone what they want. I get that, but the Islanders could run into a similar situation now where the Bruins are with Pasternak, where Pasternak came out today and said, hey, we love it here. We've loved it here. I like everything we're doing. But guess what?
Yeah.
I'm focusing on the season, which basically tells you he's not negotiating in season.
Right.
They've had a whole summer to sign Matt Barzal. It's not like this is like there's some sort of timeline that the Islanders can't meet here. They've had the whole offseason.
Yeah,
no, that's true. That's true. And we don't know that they haven't tried to, but
no.
Either. I mean, but you don't know anything with him and the way the situation goes. I mean, they might be talking him saying that he wants to get that deal done might be part of a negotiation that's ongoing that we don't know about. Like, it
could be.
There's different things there. Like I can't imagine that they haven't had some discussions.
Yeah.
At some point about this. I don't think that First of all, I don't think you would trade Matthews mid-season.
No. I'm talking about after the season and before the no move clause kicks in. And I know, and Chris Johnson just wrote an article about this. And there's Matthews. I mean, he loves it in Toronto. He's treated with the respect that one of the best players in the league. That organization really, I think, treats him well. They know they've invested a lot of time in him. He has the potential of being the all-time leading scorer in a storied franchise. I mean, the only concern is that will he get frustrated with a team that loses in the first round every year? And that was Tavares wanted to go home. I don't it wasn't the lack of success that the Islanders had in the playoffs. They only won one round in the time that he was there. I think Matthews has said in the past, if this organization keeps doing what they need to do to continue to be a winner, and they try every year to be a winner, then I think he stays, because I don't think they're gonna short shift him in terms of or short shrift him in terms of money. I think he'll be the highest. Whatever McKinnon makes on his new deal, Matthews is going to top it when his deal comes up.
Yeah, he will, and that's true with most players. I mean, every player. Listen, if like we were talking about, like if they hadn't made some interesting moves with McDavid, interesting moves in Edmonton this summer to actually like bolster their goaltending, and if they hadn't like won around last year, at least, and in Edmonton, we were going to be talking about this with McDavid. This is
absolutely.
There's no question that any player that's going to be in a situation that doesn't win, any great player like that, once they've made their money, the only thing left to do is win. So they have to no one's going to sit down and just take big checks. But the other opposite side of that is if they are winning and they are getting paid a lot there and they're happy there, then hockey players are creatures of habit. They don't want to leave places. They don't. Right. Most players don't want to leave. Even in situations that we all say like Columbus or other situations where most players don't want to leave these situations, they get comfortable there.
Yeah.
They get. I think there might be one in Winnipeg where a guy wants to leave it.
Yeah, I think that is true.
Yeah,
and I think with he didn't do himself any favors the other day in his interview either when they interviewed him. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's start with that because we have two interesting sort of stories. I mean, so the Rick Bowness and Blake Wheeler come out. They face the media today, and the announcement is that Blake Wheeler will not be wearing the C any longer. And Russ, I agree with what you said. I can't see Wheeler finishing out his contract with Winnipeg. This is like the first of, I mean, we heard all the stories about there being internal strife in that locker room. Yeah. Wheeler's got 2 years left at 8.25. They may have to eat some money on that, but I would seriously doubt that he's going to finish out his term there.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I tweeted it. I go back to this game in Philly where, they played the Jets and we waited like 45 minutes for someone to come out of the Jets locker room. And, I was talking to people who cover the Jets and they were like, yeah, there's some issues here. And you could see it. You could even see in that press conference that there was issues with that team. Yes, they were still trying to make it into the playoffs, but they were having issues. And this doesn't get rid of their issues. And I'm not saying Blake Wheeler has anything like it's all his fault. It's not. But I'm just saying now you've got this issue where you're going to reshuffle the deck with all the A's. Blake Wheeler is no longer your captain. But at some point, we all know Blake Wheeler is going to be traded.
Yeah.
Or bought out. I just looked it up.
I don't think they'll buy him out.
Yeah, after this year, a buyout would be $2.75 million for 2 years.
I don't think they would do that.
It's got value. I mean, he could.
Yeah, but 8.25 is a heavy.
You have to eat a lot of that. You have to eat half of it probably, but
yeah.
But he does have. If you're willing to eat half of it, he does have value for sure.
Yeah. Now the other thing, I'm really struggling with this one. I'll just read the statement because it's brief. Released by the NHL, the San Jose Sharks have reached an agreement with Evander Kane regarding the termination of his NHL standard player contract. The agreement has been approved by the NHL and NHL Players Association. We are satisfied that its terms will not adversely impact the team either financially or competitively in this or future seasons. And then Elliot Friedman adds, on the Evander Kane deal, the original San Jose deal had $19 million left in cash over the next 3 years. Current Edmonton deal is 16.5 over the next 3 years. It is believed the settlement will address that gap. So I'm telling you right now, the San Jose Sharks got away with bloody murder. They got rid of a guy who they should have never signed to a long-term deal because of his character issues in Atlanta, in Winnipeg, and Buffalo. But they did because once he got traded, he had a good year. They discovered the problem that he was in the locker room, which has been a problem within every other team, and eventually he'll be that way in Edmonton, unless he's really matured. And they terminated the contract. The terms of the termination were really sketchy, Russ. I mean, he went to Vancouver, and they used that as a reason to terminate him. So, and this was, I'll just say this:
but they are going to take a cap hit, Mike. They're not getting away with murder here. There's going to be a cap hit.
The cap hit's going to be $800,000 a year for 3 years. So what?
Well, I'll tell you this. All right, I'm going to say it like this: if you're in the Sharks front office, do you feel like the Sharks did anything wrong here, or do you feel like Evander Kane did things wrong?
You understand what I'm saying? I'm saying they got out of a mistake contract.
No, they did, but they're still paying for it. Where I would think, even on their end, they would think $800,000 really stinks per year.
On the one hand,
they didn't do anything wrong.
On the one hand, you're paying a $7.5 million cap hit.
No, I get it, but they didn't do anything wrong here, Mike. They looked it up, and what they felt was rightful termination. And if that was the case in the world, they shouldn't have to pay anything.
The thing they did wrong was sign him, and then what they did.
Okay, but we're past that. It has nothing to do with it.
No, but okay. What I'm saying is they got out from under a mistake, using something that was probably not worthy of a contract.
Yeah, I bet you they don't look at it that way.
Well, of course they don't look. I'm looking at it the way that it is, and I'm just saying right now the reason that this is getting sort of swept under the covers here is because he got an extension from Edmonton. And he got his money from somebody else, so he's going to drop it, and basically he's going to get paid the difference in some sort of termination.
Right, but that's the other problem. Do you think at this point San Jose wants to pay him the difference based on what went on? No, I guarantee you they don't.
I think they're happy that they're not being cap crippled for the next 6 years on a buyout.
I disagree. I think they probably are like, listen. This guy was in the fault. He was at fault. He was in the wrong, and we're still paying here.
Yeah, they were again. They were at fault.
Kane is the one who has gotten away with something here.
Yeah, they were at fault. They were at fault for making a stupid deal on a player, and now they extricated themselves using a technicality. And it's like this agreement is very similar to we haven't seen all the details, but it's going to be probably very similar to the Mike Richards deal, which they walked away from that contract, and the LA Kings took I think they're still taking cap hits on Mike Richards by negotiated contract termination. This is this is going to be 3 years of less than $1 million. So they saved about.
No, but that's on the cap. They're paying him cash too.
Right.
Well, they're paying him probably $800,000 if you average it out.
I don't know. They could be paying him more than that, Mike. This is just a cap hit, and that's why I'm saying at this point, with the money that Evander Kane has pulled in on these contracts, why should he get more money?
I don't get it. I mean, especially given the fact that they're terminating a contract, and he already has played a whole nother. He already played a year there on a different
another
team.
year. Well, he got $15 million up front in cash, something like that.
Like this is the crazy stuff about this. Like, and he's already got to sign another contract with another team before
that's
his contract even terminated.
That's on the NHL. The NHL dropped the ball on this because they've been negotiating this contract termination situation since January. It lasted until September, and he gets to sign a contract with another team while it's still being adjudicated. That's ridiculous. It should have been settled before he ever signed a contract with any other team.
How is that at all possible? It feels ridiculous to me. Like this whole concept is nuts.
And that money is going directly to his creditors in Vegas, probably.
Well, whatever it does, it just doesn't seem right with what's happening with the Sharks here. That's all.
I agree, and there's no question about that. It's amazing. It's an amazing situation. It really,
I think the Sharks are extremely fortunate that they got away with something. This was a get out of jail free card for a contract that they should have never signed in the first place, and they're going to be paying pennies on the dollar because they turned that money. They flipped that money immediately and signed. Who was it? Hurdle that they signed to the long term deal. Yeah, that's much better spent money to sign him than to have signed Evander Kane. But a lot of teams don't get that luxury.
But again, cash is coming out of the owner's pocket. It's easy for you to say this is a better deal because honestly, he looked at it as this guy had some infractions. We killed his contract. Now we're still having to pay him money and take a cap hit.
Russ, give me the billions that Platner has, and I'll pay.
But that's not the point, Mike.
That is the point. That is the point.
No, that's not because it's not it does nothing to do with it business wise. I mean, it's out. Right. Like the actual business of this is just that's why I said the basic back and forth the business is how is he allowed to even sign another contract before this contract is terminated?
I know. I was puzzled at the time that he was allowed to sign a contract while negotiate or whatever was going on with the NHL. It was being reviewed, and it took 9 months.
Yeah,
9.
Yeah, I know. All right, let's get on to the Chicago Blackhawks.
The Chicago Blackhawks.
Blackhawks are interesting. This is going to be fun. I have have their depth charts and who they added, but I want to start with this question first because I think it's worth mentioning because I had a fan ask me this question. He thinks the Alex DeBrincat trade to the Ottawa Senators for the 7th overall, which was Kuczynski, right? Yep. 39th overall, which turned out to be Ludwinski. Mm-hmm. And a 2024 third-round draft pick is the worst trade in Chicago Blackhawks history.
No, they've had.
How about Phil Esposito to the Bruins?
It's a good one, but this and the Panarin trade wasn't the greatest either.
The Panarin trade was, but they knew he wasn't signing, so that was
a different thing. But this is how many other guys at this are going to score 40 goals before they're 24 twice? It's a really. I mean, it could go down as this. He could be that good coming down the line,
But the factor here was the fact that they know they're not going to be competitive for 3 or 4 years. They know that DeBrincat is 2 years away from unrestricted free agency and that they weren't going to sign him, and they probably would have put up big numbers this year. And by putting up big numbers this year and in arbitration, he probably would have collected, $8.5 million. And they're going to be a team that's is bottoming out for Connor Bedard. So, I mean, to get a top 10 first round pick and other assets, I don't think it's a great deal, but I think it's an okay deal.
Yeah. It's I don't think it's a good deal at all. I mean, I really don't think it's a good deal at all, to be honest at this point. I mean, the Kirby Dach trade that they made is better. I think it's a better trade, the Kirby Dach trade. It also is questionable a little bit, but the weird thing about Davidson's offseason was letting Strome and Kubalik just walk away. Not
the Strome thing was puzzling. Kubalik, I think we were all being very generous when we were like, hey, he's scoring all these goals. We'll see what kind of player he's going to be. But I know there was that flash in the pan kind of feel to Kubalik.
But to not even offer them a qualifying offer.
No, I know. But sometimes, you just don't feel like it's worth it. For Strome, there was no reason. I can't figure out that one.
But Kubalik goes on and signs a 2-year, $5 million contract with the Red Wings. Mm-hmm. Strome signs a 1-year, $3.5 million contract.
Kubalik's goals went down every year from that rookie year.
Yeah, did, but you couldn't have gotten any. It's like they
right,
didn't
anything. Okay, say if you could, based on what Kubalik made the previous year, if you qualify him, it was a 10% increase, and they didn't want to pay that. So, right. And they couldn't. I'm sure they probably tried to trade him before they had to extend him the qualifying offer, and they didn't get anything in return. So they said, okay, well, we don't want to be on the hook for $3.5 million for a guy that we don't want anymore. So we're just not going to qualify him. Strome, I can't. I find it hard to believe that somebody wouldn't have been interested in trading.
Yeah, like there were teams that weren't still Dylan Strome all along. I mean, there were always teams interested in Dylan Strome.
The Strome was puzzling.
But they did, so they lost. Then they had other players walk too, obviously. Gustafsson, Borgstrom, Lankinen. These aren't great players, but they are all gone.
Nobody gets a long chance there anymore either. Like if you're a guy that's been with another organization, the Blackhawks want you because they need these plugs in their contract, right? Because their cap situation's bad, and if you don't produce instantly, you're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I really feel, and I'm sure there are teams out there that don't feel for Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane because, they've won 3 Stanley Cups. But, in the chat, somebody mentioned Dominic Hasek for Christian Ruutu. That was probably the worst.
Oh yeah, that's the worst
of history. There is nothing there other than Kane and Toews. They added Athanasiou, they added Max Domi on 1-year contracts. They're going to be basically guys who are shipped out at the deadline.
Yep.
They've got guys like Tyler Johnson is coming back from the same surgery that Jack Eichel had.
That's a tough one. Jake
McCabe is going to be out for at least 3 months with I think it was cervical spine surgery. Yeah. So you're talking about an organization that's going to be starting, Sam Lafferty and Mackenzie Entwistle and Boris Kachuk and Taylor Radish. This team, they are going to rival Arizona for the worst team.
Well, here is their depth chart as I sort of see it now. And this could be debated, but I was trying to go through it, basically combining different people's depth charts out there and to come up with this. The top line, you start with Toews and Kane. That's good. It's pretty good. And then Lucas Reichel, it's your left wing on that line. Mm-hmm. That's not bad. It's an okay first line. Obviously, Kane's a great player. Toews has potential to be a great player. But usually your second line wouldn't be like all trade deadline people, but they are. The second line, I think, is Domi, Athanasiou, and Tyler Johnson. And they're all, all 3 of those.
Nobody knows if Tyler Johnson's going to play or not.
Right. But I think he will. I heard he will. I don't know. I did make some calls. I don't know. Who knows? They don't know, but he's doing. There's a couple players out there that are kind of surprising people, and he's one of them. Also, Hagelin in Washington is another one who is looking like he might actually play. And people the Capitals weren't really expecting him to be able to play.
Right.
And if he has to play, that puts the Caps in a little bit of issues. Like that's not an easy thing for the Caps. The Caps are going to have to deal with if he's not LTIR. But he's playing. He's practicing and doing pretty well apparently. Then their third line, Lafferty, Kyra, and Blackwell. And their fourth line, Kurashev, Entwistle, and Radish. So, yeah, that's a very, very tough.
Yeah, and honestly, Kurashev is really not a fourth line guy. Like he's more like a third line guy. I would have him on the third line if I wanted to get more production. But I looked over their farm system because they had like a bevy of picks this year, and they still really only have a couple of A's, a few B's. And a lot of C's. Like their farm system needs a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean the guys that they drain, Korchinski is going to be a good player, but he's a couple years away.
Yeah, yeah. I mean their defense, Vlasic and Jones as the top defense.
Yeah, Vlasic's pretty good. I mean, I watched him in the NTDP. He's not bad. Jones is pretty good too. They're both pretty good, but that's like NHL average.
No, I'm talking about Seth Jones as their top pairing there. This is their top.
Oh, that's Seth Jones. This
is what I've heard about.
Alex Vlasic is not going to be on their top pairing.
A lot of people have him on their top pairing.
I mean, he is a defensive defenseman.
Cap friendly, and CBS both have him on their top pairing.
Yeah, maybe he isn't, but he's going to be in the 3 of the 3 pairings. He'll be in there. Seth Jones is their 1 star. That was a brain fart by me.
For sure. But then Caleb Jones, is a third line defensive
Right, that's what was getting me, is they have him too.
Right, and Riley Stillman on third line, along Jack Johnson and Connor Murphy in the second.
I mean, you know what we think of Connor Murphy. Jack Johnson's hanging on.
Yeah,
he's okay. This whole defense is below average.
And then the goalies are Mrazek and Stalock.
Jesus Christ.
So that's where they go with that.
I'm rooting for Stalock.
Yeah,
there are two goalies that have not played healthy at all.
No, I mean, Stalock, it's not his fault. He had COVID.
Fault, and we like Stalock, but this is going to be. It's going to be
a tough year. The only thing that's keeping them the only thing that's preventing them from getting Connor Bedard is the road trip for the Coyotes. It really is.
But I think the overall talent that that's the thing. The overall talent that the Coyotes have might be greater than the Hawks, and it definitely will be greater if they trade Kane and Taves, because then you'll have essentially the Rockford Ice Hogs playing at the United Center.
But I will tell you this: they're in the running for the top three, and for this year's draft, that's what you want, because those top three are all franchise players, and that's where you want to be, and they're in that sweepstakes for sure. Right in it.
Yeah. It is incredible. Like, and when you look on, how I think it's Cap Friendly lists their prospects and whether they're trending upward or downward. They usually have that little arrow there trending upward or downward. They have every one of their prospects of probably 15 of them all trending downward. But
that's baloney. I mean, again, do I trust Cap Friendly?
I'm not saying. I'm just saying that this is in respect. I'm not saying that Cap Friendly is a prospect place, at all.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. I will look at that with a jaundiced eye. To be fair.
Yeah, no, for sure. But there's the depth charts are different all over the place, and I think that.
I mean, Russ, they had 3 first-round picks in this draft, and they took Korchinski, Nazar, and Rinzel.
Yeah, those are all good picks. These are all good. Rinzel, I don't think is an A. I think he's a B type player. I think the other two, there's no question Korchinski's an A, and I think Nazar is an A, but it's going to take him a little while to develop because he has to get stronger and he has to.
Their first round pick last year was Nolan Allen, who had 41 points in the WHL. And he's 19 years old, so he's at least a couple years away. And Reichel was their first round pick in 2020, and he's already in the NHL. So
there's a few others too that are pretty good, but again, like I said, they still need a lot of work there. So they're not going to be good for a while because again, what are they going to do with Kane and Taves?
Yeah.
I would be dumb. Kevin has said it's he thinks it'll be tough to move Taves, and that's sad. But because even if they retained 50, they would probably have to trade Taves through a third team to retain 50%, and then another 50% that would make him like a $3 million around a $3 million player to get somebody to take him. But Kane. The only problem is that the teams that Kane wants to go to can't fit a $10.5 million salary, but they'll make room if it's a $5.25 million salary. He'll have.
No, that's true, but with Taves, even Winnipeg can't really use him now. It's because they have so many issues with a new coach and everything. It's just not a good situation even for Taves to go into.
Okay, I got you.
Taves for Blake Wheeler. There you go.
There you go. And those arrows on CapGeek are waivers, except I apologize. That doesn't mean that they're trending downward. That's another site that does.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
That's all right.
I'm not or salary cap.
I apologize to Cap Friendly too.
Cap Friendly, I don't check too often, so honestly, but they usually do a pretty good depth chart. So anyway, that's where they are, and we're going to see a lot of players. I mean, what's the best that they can hope for? Obviously, wherever they're going to get a ransom for Patrick Kane at some point.
The best that they can hope for is 32nd place. That's 32nd place.
For Patrick Kane, they'll get a lot. There's no question about that, and that's going to be a vitally important trade for them moving forward as far as where they are. Because
here's the thing: for Patrick Kane, he's likely going to a contender, and that contender will not, if their first round pick is going to be in the bottom 6 or 7 of the draft. So more than likely it's going to be prospects that are, if it's LA, say for example, and he goes there, Quentin Byfield's going to have to be part of the package.
Yeah.
Something like that. If it's Colorado, it probably won't be Bowen Byram. It might be Sam Girard.
It won't be Bowen Byram.
No, it won't be Bowen. I'm saying it might probably be Sam Girard. So there's going to have to be some young prospect.
You know what's funny that what I've noticed in this league, how often now, and this has happened in baseball a lot, and I think it's starting to happen in the NHL. A lot of times when these trades are being made now, who's getting the other team's best prospect? Nobody.
Well, the Washington Nationals did.
No, but that's, again, for Soto. But every other deal, no. But I'm saying in the NHL, too. Who the hell's getting their best prospect in these deals? They're usually getting the 3 or the 4.
Yeah. I mean,
Sometimes
although
second, but not very
we
often.
haven't seen a player of Patrick Kane's stock in a trade.
That's fair.
Well, that's fair. But, the Calgary deal that just happened, it was a hockey deal. They got Huberdeau and they got Uyghur.
Yeah, that was a hockey deal straight up, right?
So the thing is here, in this deal, Chicago doesn't want a hockey deal because they don't want players who are going to make a lot of money while they suck the next 2 or 3 years. They want top prospects and draft picks. So
unless those players are already in the NHL, like Lafreniere, for example, that's a guy that's a guy that I've heard mentioned in this thing.
Kako or something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's
the thing. I think they will trade Kako way before they'll trade Lafreniere. That's the thing.
Because
I agree with that.
Right, because more than likely, Kane is not signing wherever he gets traded to. He's gonna want to hit the market, and that's
on if he gets traded to the team he wants to sign for. Though, I mean, there could be. We tend
to
see
the only way he's getting somebody's former number one, like a number one overall, is if he actually is signing on the dotted line for an extension.
If there's an extension involved, and Chicago will definitely allow people to talk to him about that.
Sure.
I could see him definitely wanting to sign. I know he wants to play for the Rangers. I've heard that over and over again. So if the Rangers know they can extend him, is Lafreniere worth it?
No, because they could just let it not happen and get him in the offseason.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And keep Lafreniere.
Yeah.
Why would you bother? I'll give you Kako now, and if I have the agreement, you can get Kako. We can give you a pick. We can give you another prospect. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you Lafreniere because I could just wait till the summer.
Right. Or, but can you? Because, you should be able to wait for the summer, but it's quite possible that Patrick Kane just comes right out and says, I want to negotiate with whoever. I want to go someplace. And he gives them a list of 3 teams. And so, if he's going, wherever he's going, he's going to sign an extension.
Yeah, but this could be a situation where if Kane's like Panarin, he's like, listen, I just want to play for the Rangers.
Yeah.
It
might be.
They know they're going to get him.
It might be, but I think that they won't. It won't. It sounds like there's a couple possibilities for Kane. Doesn't sound like it's just the Rangers, but like it was for Panarin, like it was for some other players too. But we'll see. I don't know, but I do think that that'll be the most interesting thing by far with the Blackhawks will be following Patrick Kane this year and seeing what happens with that.
Yes, no question about it.
Because he's a star. He's also a huge playoff performer and a huge big game guy, and anybody who's looking like if the Leafs were to grab him or something like that, this is the kind of teams that haven't won in the playoffs. This is a guy you want to get on your team.
Well, yeah, and
Michael trade Nylander for Kane straight up.
Well, they wouldn't want Nylander because Nylander is only under contract for 2 years, and he would hurt them in terms of them winning games. No, maybe
that's true, and they've already had their share of Nylanders anyhow. So,
and maybe they would flip him somplace else for assets. That's
where is Alex Nylander? Where is he now?
Pittsburgh, I think.
Pittsburgh.
Yes, he is in Pittsburgh. That's true. That's all the time we have for today, folks. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back on Monday. There are some.
Can you say one more thing,
because
I noticed it. So I don't know how awkward this is going to be, and I guess I'll find out next week when I'm in Pittsburgh. But Jason Zucker's in Penguins camp.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. They
tried heavy and hard to get him traded.
They tried. This has happened before, and he's kind of stuck, which is a shame for that kid. I think. I'd like to see him succeed, and I always feel like he could still succeed, but he is.
Yeah, he's still got a good shot. I think under the right circumstances, you still could get 17, 20 goals out of him.
Yes. Okay, so. And yes, I will always apologize for making mistakes. Never apologize for getting the date wrong because the date is a random thing picked at some point in time and doesn't exist anyway. So It's just something that we, dates are ridiculous. Remember, without the buzz, it's just.
Well, hold on. This is worth 30 seconds. No, if you now, all right. I know this. I'm talking to you, but I'm going to talk to the greater people out here. If you didn't have a date and time to follow, what would you do? How would you know how to do something? And what would you know? What I mean, how would you allocate your time?
We'd find it. We'd figure it out. Figure it out.
I'd be scared. I'd be scared for you, Ek.
You should be anyway, Russ. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will all talk to you on Monday. See you then.